Okay, guys. Yeah. Welcome to the show, guys. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry, we're about 10 minutes late. I hope you're still there with us. Welcome to the Kenya Updates live show with Maureen and Susan. Yeah, welcome, Susan. How was your week?
Thank you.
How was the
Uh,
week?
Well, it was interesting. One of my a childhood friend is around from the US, so I was
Oh,
really excited
fun.
to see her yesterday. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It
I've
looks
known
like
her since we're
everybody's
about.
heading to Kenya.
Oh, she's just here for a holiday. Yeah, yeah. I was really happy to, we spent the evening yesterday together, so it was really lovely. Yeah.
I, who is based in the UK, you guys, for those of you who are joining us from different platforms, maybe you're joining us from X or from YouTube, welcome to the show. I believe there's a way that I can invite you actually to join us inside this particular studio. If you don't see it, I'll just keep on shifting back and forth between the platforms just to make sure that I see your comments and respond to them or etc. So I see that we have two people who are watching us and you're all very welcome. So yeah, so Susan, happy to know that you had a good week. We here in the UK, all we're talking or hearing about is cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. Everybody's complaining about the cost of living in the UK, and everybody's concerned. There's been this little rumor talking about security. There's been this little rumor that the government gave a contract to a company for mega tents, for mega body bags. And now the British people are like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But they were told not to worry because this is normal. Apparently, it's normal. These are just regular contracts that are given to companies for 2 years at a time. That in case we have a big emergency and they need a place to house, the unalived, at least, they can do it. Not a nice way to start the show, but today's show is so, so important because we're dealing with issues of security and also issues of health and education. Those three issues are of great concern to all of us as Kenyans and people who are living in the diaspora and also in the country. Yeah, in the country of Kenya. We know that from what I saw in the news, it looks like the governor of Mandera raised the alarm that there is a militia group that has taken over a school in Mandera and that they're training a Juba group from South Sudan, I believe. And before that, there was a terror alert. Should I say a terror warning? A warning that was given by the American High Commission, I believe, in Kenya, warning Kenyans about the potential for Al Shabaab attack. And then also at the same time, so there was like a primary warning. This was on August 19th, and today is the 30th. So it's literally the end of the month. So this is a 2-week old warning. The embassy issued a renewed security advisory urging heightened vigilance, particularly when you're in high traffic places, and about terrorist groups, especially Al Shabaab. They say that they remain an ongoing and persistent threat. And we were warned about that they could strike without warning in hotels and embassies and restaurants and malls and markets and places like those. But Kenyans, we like to pray and we like to hope for the best. And really, what else can we do? But we did not see any other notable warnings from Kenyan authorities or other diplomatic missions. So we want to understand why it is that the Kenyan government hasn't really followed up on that and hasn't issued any warnings. Does it mean that there really is no threat to life? And if in case there might be threat to life, I think the government should definitely warn Kenyans about this issue. Yeah. So apart from that, that's a difficult place to start. But we saw that the governor of Mandera issued has this concern. He raised alarm over the alleged spillover of Jubaland forces into Kenya, and that, of course, is concerning because apparently there is fear of, again, with Somalia, there is fear of refugees influx into Kenya. We have been hearing rumors that so-called Somali refugees or people on the borders have been given Kenyan IDs And there's been a lot of rumors going and circulating around. We just want to make sure that we understand what's really happening here. Yeah. Again, we know that about 5,000 Somali refugees in Mandera have been hosted inside of schools, including Barakor Secondary School, and they have now vacated because of this problem, with the governor raising the alarm that soldiers are aligned, who are aligned with Jubaland administration from Somalia, not from Sudan, from Somalia, are crossing into Mandera County, allegedly fleeing after the Somali National Army recaptured Bulahawa. Okay, so that's that. Again, you remember that the deputy president, Gashagwa, made allegations of secret meetings in the US. While he was speaking in the US, he made allegations of these secret meetings between the President William Ruto and and Al-Shabaab leaders. Now, these are just allegations, of course. Nothing is substantiated, but these are his claims, not our claims. All I'm doing here is just reporting what was in the news. And so the question was implications to threats to national security. So if you tie these issues together and you see that the governor of Mandera has now come with this alarm, it brings to light the issue that was raised by Gashagwa, who was the deputy president until he was ousted recently. Yeah. So the national leaders, I guess, should also be Interior Security, Interior CS, Cabinet Secretary, Kithure Kindiki and others. No, he's not Interior CS anymore. In those days, he was emphasizing that any leader making statements about terrorism must back it up with evidence and cooperate with security agencies. But honestly, sincerely, how can you get evidence of, a terror attack? Yeah. Other issues that we're going to be discussing today have to do with the fact that the children went back to school this week, and we want to find out about capitation. Where are we with the capitation issues of our young people? Do they have an adequate funding to go to school? Or are we going to be in this serious problem again with parents not being able to afford it, children being sent home from school because their schools cannot afford it, So I think our country is kind of in a bit of a mess. Again, we also have the issue of SHA. We talked about that last week, but this particular week has also been really hot on that topic. Apparently, it appears that some monies are missing in clandestine ways in terms of institutions, or should I say health clinics being registered and hospitals registered which are not registered, I could call them ghost hospitals. Yeah. So money going to ghost hospitals, and meanwhile, we find that our own patients don't have access to medical care because they can't afford it. So I'll allow Susan to give us a little bit of an update instead of me going on forever. Susan, Karibu, I'm sure you're aware of what's going on in Kenya since you're there. Yeah, for the rest of you guys, welcome to our channel, and call everybody else. Let's have a lively discussion today, please. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. There's been a lot going on. That topic about the Mandera issue and the Jubaland militia having encroached right all the way into Mandera. And in fact, he was saying about 60% of the area is occupied by these characters, and they're living in fear. They're very, very scared. Some people have fled. There's some who have stayed because of their livestock and their farming and their businesses. But he said they were living in fear, and was saying that the central government, the national government, should do something about it. It's a serious issue. And he also did mention, apart from the Jubaland, he said that the Ethiopians have also encroached right into Kenya as well. We know there was some reports in the news earlier in the year about the Oromo Liberation Army, who had moved right down, as far down as Isiolo, from the border. And what they're doing is they come and they establish training camps, in Kenya, and they really should not be doing that. We are a sovereign nation, and that is certainly something of great concern to us. And it goes back. This story about the security goes back all the way back to the kidnapping of the abduction or kidnapping of the 5 chiefs. If you remember that story earlier in the year or late last year, where there were 5 chiefs who were abducted and taken across the border into Somalia. I think you remember that story. So apparently, a story about those 5 chiefs is that uh, our national government, rather, a ransom was demanded for them of about 7 million shillings. And this money was paid. Assumptions were that the area people or even the relatives of these chiefs could not have raised 7 million shillings. Uh, and they were saying that it must have been from the state. And those are the reports in the media that the government had something to do with paying that ransom for the chiefs. But what was really strange, because I was listening to an analysis of it, and they were saying that apparently when the kidnapping took place, the people around tried to chase the kidnappers, and they were stopped by police from actually catching the kidnappers, and then they fled. And then they're saying high level meetings were held with these people who are associated with Al-Shabaab, so that they could release. Actually, they were Al-Shabaab who kidnapped the 5 chiefs, and uh, uh, so there was they're saying there were high level meetings with elders. They were talking about elders of the village, the ones who negotiated with who were talking to the Al-Shabaab for the release of the chiefs, and those guys demanded 7 million shillings. And of course, the big question again is, if the government paid 7 million shillings, are we really supposed to be negotiating with terrorists as a nation? The implications there are quite severe. So the story about the insecurity in that area dates all the way back to that. I'm sure there are earlier stories relating to that. Um, so my question is, when I was listening to this argument, this particular station was trying to um, fact check regarding Gachagwa's allegations that the president met with Al Shabaab militia in Mandera, and they were fact checking it and saying the information they have is that, or when they did their fact checking, was that these 5 chiefs were kidnapped. The residents tried to flee after them. They were stopped by the police. Later on, high level or elders met with these people, and not being specific about who exactly met with the Al Shabaab, and 7 million shillings was paid. There's a contradiction there. So why would the police stop people from catching these people, the Al Shabaab, who had kidnapped the 5 chiefs? Why would they stop them, and then the government pays? So what's the truth in that story? It's really murky. But where there's smoke, there's no smoke without fire. So there is a story there, which needs to be unraveled, well, by those who have all
Yeah.
the evidence. But it doesn't look good. And like Maureen is saying, questions are being asked and they need to be answered. Kenyans, we have experienced terrorist attacks. There are still families today who are reeling from the shock of the 98 bombings in Nairobi.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
so badly affected by that. And Westgate, still some people cannot even go to Westgate. To this day, they are still terrified, of going to Westgate and other places. Yeah, so Kenyans, let's be vigilant, let's be careful, and let's watch out. But I think the security question goes beyond just terrorism. This past week, we celebrated Katiba at 15 on the 27th of August. 15 years ago, 2010, 27th of August, the new constitution was promulgated by the third president of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency, the late Mwai Kibaki. And so there was some, like, what do you call it, an audit on the gains and what gains have been made in the 15 years. And really, the picture is, notwithstanding having having a robust and, they say, very sort of forward-looking constitution, we have historically, apparently, and this is in the news, our current president has never supported the 2010 constitution. He's never supported it. He's one of the guys who didn't want it to pass. So I was listening to
what reason did he not want it to pass? And was that during the previous regime, when he was in government? In 2010, I guess. Yeah, that was when during Kibaki, actually Uhuru, then Kibaki. Yeah, that's right.
It was Kibaki, then Uhuru.
Oh,
Kibaki
sorry, yeah.
is number
Kibaki,
3,
then
Uhuru
Uhuru,
is number
yeah.
4.
So the question is, at what stage did he vote against it?
There was the constitution making. It took like over 10 years for us to come out with the 2010 constitution. Don't forget the bananas and oranges. Yes, no. In is it in 2005, 2005, and people said no. The oranges carried the day, so they said no. And then later on, again, they went back to the drawing board, and the current constitution is what was passed, what Kenyans accepted. So the referendums, there were 2 referendums actually. So one was in 2005, and then the other one was later on, and that's when the constitution was approved by the public. And it's a very sort of forward-looking one. It has, it talks about the Bill of Rights, the human rights. It talks about integrity and leadership, and establishment of a number of constitutional institutions which are supposed to oversight certain things, like the the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commissioner oversighting the integrity and leadership chapter, and also the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Those guys are now the ones who have that a role to check excesses of, or to oversight excesses of in leadership and integrity under the Constitution. So it's been a lot of, so actually the media took quite a bit of time to talk about the Constitution. They got the views from the youth and stuff like that. And the things you're talking about are related, so for instance, on the issue of security, we know Bill of Rights actually talks about the security of the person, security of the person in different contexts. So for instance, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, their report showed that there have been 115 deaths following the protests, in 2004, 2024, and 2025. Enforced disappearances are 89. Missing persons still 29. Arrests, arbitrary arrests of protesters, about 600. We know that people have passed away, in torture and through torture and death whilst in police custody. The case of Albert Ojwang, we know about that, and there are many others. In fact, I think since Albert, there have been several others, over 20 others who have passed away whilst in police custody. Then we have the human rights activists who have also been arbitrarily arrested and charged. For instance, Boniface Mwangi was arrested on charges of terrorism, which were later dropped to being in possession of live ammunition. And by the way, that is one. I think he was found with 1 round. And he wasn't found. Allegedly, they said he had 1 round. And Boniface, of course, said, I don't even own a gun. Then we had, of course, the persecution of the media houses. They've been threatened with closure, especially during the protests, where the communications authorities told them, threatened to close them down. The lawyers rushed to court, and they were told to they were told to desist. The newsrooms didn't close down, but instead they reacted as any good citizen would do, and they rushed to court and got orders, against the closure. We know, again, also journalists have been injured who have been trying to record and report what's happening. For instance, on the return of Rigathi Gachagua, journalists from TV 47 and Citizen, or one of the other major news houses, they actually were injured quite badly. They were simply trying to just capture the moment, but you know what happened along near City Cabanas? There was a barricade by hostile people who stoned the motorcade, and they attacked the vehicles. So the journalists who were trying to report were injured. We also know there's been censorship. So the journalists have also been hunted and locked up, and for reporting on certain things on the news, and also censorship of what they are reporting has also happened. Again, on the other front, the economic rights, social and economic rights, we know that there have been forced evictions in informal settlements. People have been, all of a sudden they've been moved out, without proper process in terms of relocating them to safer places or to other places. So they've been just kicked out. There's been a lot of that happening in the news.
Let me ask a question,
Coming
Susan, before you speed on to the next one. Um, I think maybe going back a bit, just slightly, about the journalists who were attacked. The journalists being attacked, isn't that against the law anywhere in the world, or what? Can you advise us on that, being a lawyer? What are the rights of journalists globally? What is a general accepted rule on media
you know,
freedoms?
you know, it's the constitution. It's in our constitution, freedom, freedom of expression. Yeah, and the media falls under that particular right. They're supposed to report news to us, so they were doing their job. So the injuries, of course, that's a criminal offense. You're not supposed to, if not just a journalist, anybody, you're not supposed to intentionally harm uh, anybody. Um, and, you can't even consent to being harmed. Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw a video of a journalist who was really seriously injured. He was seriously injured, and he was talking from a hospital bed. And a rock had been thrown at his head, actually. And he's with one of these major media houses. And I asked myself, what is the responsibility of government in this particular case? What is the responsibility of government? Yeah. Are they supposed to seek compensation, or what happens? Because you see, media freedoms should be protected, because we need them also. The media needs to be free to also, they never know when they will need the media themselves to report on, when they are on the wrong side, when they are not, when the country or the people go against them, and they are silenced, and they're not able to speak out, or their issues are not raised. So what's going to happen if they do this kind of censorship and allow it to continue this way? Because it appears to me that we're becoming a bit of an authoritarian state. It's very authoritarian.
Actually, the Constitution at Article 34 talks about freedom of the media. They have a special role to play in a democratic society in terms of keeping people informed and letting people know what's happening around them. So there's freedom and independence of electronic, print, and all other types of media is guaranteed, but does not extend to any expression specified in Article 33(2). That's propaganda for war, incitement to violence, hate speech, advocacy of hatred, or whatever. These journalists are merely reporting what they're saying, and they were attacked. So they're certainly entitled to protection of the law. In terms of the liability of government, they could, if they could prove that the what you call it, the state machinery, the security machinery failed to protect them in any way, they could take it civil action against them and get damages and compensation for the injuries that they sustained. Maybe even exemplary damages, which are uh, which are sort of calculated at a higher rate because of the fear they experience, the terror, the expectation not being met, and stuff like that. Expecting the police who are present there to really manage the people who are protesting. But of course, we saw that the and the media captured this in their videos, and even Wananchi, who happened to be using their phones or whatever other devices, was that the police and the guys who are throwing stones, the goons, were together. The police were not arresting the goons, which is what they should have been doing. They were sort of like shoulder to shoulder. They're on the same side. Instead of forming a barricade to stop those goons from attacking the other citizens, the journalists and all that, they did nothing. So whoever takes that matter to court would really have to be able to establish that, perhaps take those videos and show really this is what was happening. We were here. Our expectation was that the police would be protecting people and not just standing by or participating in causing injury to Wananchi. So there is a remedy, there is redress. The onus is, of course, on the law says he who alleges must prove. So they have to take the matter to court to make sure they have sufficient evidence for exemplary damages. If they are able to identify, let's say, the individuals themselves, if the police themselves struck them, the way we have the case of Clincy, Boniface Karaoke, where we can actually see who shot him, remember? And also the case of Rex Masai, where a journalist actually caught the image of the policeman who shot Rex. And he had some distinctive features on his face, and they were able to, rather, I'm not sure how far that case has gone, but show a link between saying that the person on this video is this gentleman who has been brought to court and who is alleged to have committed that particular offense. So it means that you have to collect enough evidence, and young people are usually well armed and very quick with their phones. They're able to collect a lot of information very quickly on their phones. So I'm sure that evidence can be collected. Yeah. So I hope I've answered your question. I can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Yeah, sorry. It's
Can't hear.
because I was looking for. Yeah, thank you, Susan. Sorry, thank you so much for that explanation. The reason I ask this is because I feel like journalists might actually be intimidated now from covering what's going on in the country. And as we are receiving these kinds of advisories, like from the US government on something like a potential terror attack or something like that, it means that the journalists need to understand what their rights are. I don't know whether they're in their training they're given that, or whether their media houses actually follow up on their behalf. But it's very concerning when we are seeing time after time journalists are always being attacked. The last time that we had a situation where women were fighting for their rights against femicide, again, journalists were also attacked. The journalists that were covering those women who went to the city to demonstrate and to protest against femicide, they were also attacked. And they were attacked right there in front of Nation House. I believe it was in front of the Nation Media House. And the question is, how is that still allowable now in this day and age? So let me just share one video just to, highlight this matter. And also the follow-up by the CS himself, I believe the internal security. Let me see if I can find a way to share. As you know, I'm not very, okay, so let's see this. Oops. No. I almost left the site, guys. Very scary. Very scary. Okay, so let me see. Yeah, the journalist attacked. Journalists attacked. Yeah, here he is. Let's see what he has to say here.
Today ni mimi, kesho another journalist. So tungeomba pia serikali iweze kuangalia masuala ya wanahabari, kwa sababu at the end of the day sisi lazima we have to show what is happening. But sasa now if our lives are endangered, hakuna vile tutaweza
Okay.
Today ni mimi.
Yeah, so you see that. And there's also the response by the CS himself, Kipchumba Murkomen. Don't know if you can hear.
Can't see anything.
Oh, you can't hear, Susan? Okay.
I can't.
Okay.
I can't see anything. Have you shown it? I saw the journalist
You
clip.
saw the journalist. You didn't see this other one.
Yes.
Okay, let me start again. Sorry, guys. Give me a minute, please, kindly. Let me share the screen. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I noticed that nobody was saying anything. I was like, okay, I'm hoping. Okay. Yes, here he is. I think I'll be able to share now. Okay, let's start again.
Innocent people are are caught up in these situations. So it is regrettable that the journalists were in that situation. And I think going forward, we just need proper deployment of police officers so that they can also protect not just journalists, but members of the public. And maybe this is something we can work with the association for the journalists and to see what will happen during such events. How shall the local police commander dealing with those issues, how will they, what we can tell them to secure the journalists? There must be closer relationship between the media and the police office and the government, because our duty is to facilitate access to proper information by the public and be done in a responsible manner. So, as I said last night during our interview, it's regrettable, and we need to find better ways of working together, because I saw some of the journalists who were injured. It was totally unnecessary.
Okay. So you heard it.
I agree with him. It was totally unnecessary.
Yes, and these matters need to be highlighted more by people like us who are content creators, because just like the CS said, not just the journalists, but the members of the public as well. That includes also content creators who could be there taking video with their phones, and they could also be attacked by the same goons. So the police should ensure security for all members of the public in such situations. Yeah, like when with the Rigathi entourage returned from the US. Okay, thank you, Susan. Sorry, I just didn't want to belabor the point. I just wanted to make sure that we cover that point. You know, it's important that we raise it. We have to raise it. And we need to raise it more and more and more about the security of whistleblowers, security of people who are journalists collecting information. I think our country should not be something like a dictatorship. It should be open and free, and it should be democratic. If we are really a democratic nation with a democratic leader, then we should have freedom of expression and freedom of engagement. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you so
so
much.
certainly. Yeah, certainly. Maureen, there's a bit of an echo from my side. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yeah, last time we had this problem of the echo, but what I came to realize is when it was actually downloaded, it was fine, Susan. It was okay. Sometimes when we're in recording it, there could be an echo. Maybe it could also be with your
Okay.
headphones. Yeah. So
Uh,
we'll just
uh,
continue. But when it
okay.
comes to the actual recording, it's fine. It's the same thing with the pictures because we're using a different software. Sometimes it's on and off.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
yeah.
hoping that it will be okay as the time continues. Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
Polly.
okay, I just wanted to add about the journalists. They have their rules also about how to go out when you're out in the field, what you must have. So they have the identity badges. They also have, if you notice, they have like overcoats or a jacket, and it says media. You can clearly see these are media people. Some of them actually have helmets as well. Protective headgear and stuff like that. But they're very distinctively dressed, so you can't really confuse them for being wananchi, because they have their labels. So if you ask me, it's unlikely. There's a high likelihood that an attack on a journalist is actually deliberate, because whoever it is doesn't want whatever they're shooting to be seen. And that's the unfortunate part of it, because if you check on any video, you can see clearly these are journalists. They have their cameras, they have their paraphernalia, they have their badges. I mean, they have their lanyard with their badge, and they also have marked, their clothes are marked that they're media personnel. So it's unfortunate that that actually happened, and let's hope that that our government is really serious about protecting people when they're out exercising their civic duty. Yeah, so when we're talking about insecurity again, um, we are talking about Katiba at 15. We know that there's a big scandal relating to Shah, and the possibility of losing lots of money, because the 104 billion system that was supposed to be making it easier to make claims has failed. And so it has failed, and they're saying there's a likelihood of losing. They're saying that they have had to revert to manual verification of more than 500,000 hospital claims across the country after the digital system collapsed, which could lead to a loss of 24 billion shillings. So this digital system, which is a superhighway system, cost taxpayers 104 billion. That is how much was supposed to be paid. Um, and it has crumpled. It has collapsed. Of course, the CS help, CS Dwale, who's seen as quite abrasive and bullish, not a popular man in the workspace. Some of his comments do not, are not very, they're not very politically correct, or they don't show they don't reflect well on who a leader is supposed to be. For instance, remember he said that about the shooting. You remember during the protest, he said, shoot to immobilize. It's called immobilization, and he was very callous about it. It's called immobilization, the shooting in the leg. Yeah, you wanted to say something?
Yes, exactly. I saw somewhere where Dwale actually said that he's not resigning. He he said he's not resigning, and that's it. And he's there to reform Shah, and the reform is going to happen. So it's as if he's kind of like turning things around so that it makes it look as if Kenyans are anti-reformist, that he's pro-reformist and we are anti-reformist, and that's the reason why we're complaining. It's not because actually the Shah is not working. Yeah, It's because people are anti-reform. The thing is also, it's
Oh no.
important to also note that what was actually budgeted for the SHA, what was proposed initially was only about just under 1 billion shillings to move from NHIF to SHA. Just under 1 billion. It was a few million. Yeah, it was very, very small amount of money. All of a sudden it came to 104 billion. Yeah, so really that difference is amazing.
This 104 billion was for the, the digitization of claims, that
That's
system.
what I'm talking
And
about. I'm
that is
saying
what
that
has collapsed.
the original
Yeah.
budget for that digitization of claims, moving
Yeah.
from NHIF to SHA, was just under 1 billion shillings.
Imagine
And
that.
then it was, it was increased. It was increased by, what is it? Not even 100%, not even 1,000%. What do you call that?
104%.
10,000%.
104%.
100% would be just 2 billion. From 1 to 2, that's 100%. Yeah. So 20 billion would be what? 1,000%. 200 billion. Sorry, 10 billion would be 1,000%. 100 billion would be 10,000% increment. Honestly, sincerely, Kenya has a lot of money. Kenya has a lot of money. If we had leaders that knew what to do with the money of Kenya, we would be very, very far. We would be so, so, so ahead. Honestly, sincerely. Very disappointing.
It's disgraceful. Anyway, quite disgraceful. So we know SHA has had that problem. It's just not working well. In fact, one of the issues when we talk about access to healthcare, when we're looking at the Constitution at 15, it's accessible healthcare, right? But even the SHA system, you're supposed to pay it 1 year in advance. NHIF, you pay monthly. People were paying monthly, but now they want 1 year in advance. So you have to. They're not accepting, SHA payments, in smaller amounts. So you have to pay it 1 year in advance, which is making it quite out of the reach of most Kenyans. In fact, that was one of the arguments, that when you're talking about access to healthcare, it is not really affordable, to Kenyans. Then the other thing, again, is we know we've had a really bad track record in terms of gender-based violence. We've been seeing it almost every day in the news. For instance, between August and October last year, we had 97 cases of gender-based violence. And we know the numbers are going up. We're seeing it almost every day now, where we're finding familicide, where we're finding, one spouse has killed the other, has unalived the other, or unalived the entire family, and stuff like that. That's what we're seeing now in the news. Even among the police, we are finding that they are shooting one another. So there's something terribly wrong when we're talking about, is Kenya facing a security crisis? Most definitely, the picture doesn't look good. The optics are not very good. Again, the
Before
other
you move
question when
forward,
we're talking.
yeah, I just want to make a comment about that. And if you're moving, are you moving away from gender-based violence now? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When you say that the optics look bad, yes, it does. And interestingly enough, I think that these gender-based violence incidences have increased globally. I think because of this, this situation, the cost of living crisis, with higher cost of living issues, there's a lot of difficulties looking after the families. Many people are unaliving themselves. Some people are going into depression. So people should watch their mental health, guys. Watch your mental health. You see, with this particular show, Kenya Updates Live, we will give you the updates, but we will also comment on what how these things are impacting on us individually. I believe nobody has been spared a day of two of sadness and worry and concern. Yeah? All of us are concerned about our finances, we're worried about our family members. Even if you yourself are okay financially, you definitely will be receiving a call from somebody in the extended family expecting you to support them one way or the other. And it's difficult for us to say no. I don't think we've ever been in such a terrible situation in a very long time. So I would want to say to us as people that, as spouses and as family people, that we should definitely have patience with each other. That's number one. Try not to be demanding too much. And also try to maybe bring down your standard of living if you have to. Forego a few things, make your life a little bit easier. And again, also there are people who are prone to have very bad tempers and to go and abuse alcohol and drugs when they're experiencing stress. And what that does is that it then shifts their mindset, and they have no control for their actions eventually. So they can do something really terrible which they didn't really mean to do. So I believe some of these, I also saw a situation where a mother threw herself and her children, herself and a child into a river. This has happened in Kenya. This has also happened in, was it in Germany? One of these European countries. A Kenyan lady actually, unalived her children in a river. And in Canada, we also saw the same thing recently. A lady. When women get stressed, when mothers get very stressed, they can take terrible, drastic actions. So we have to keep our eye out for each other. There's no shame in reporting domestic violence. There's no shame in saying that you're not feeling safe. It's better to go and seek help. And violence is in many forms. It's in the form of physical violence and also emotional and financial. And I believe Susan can also give us a little bit of should I say, give us some update about that, because I know she knows it very well. She understands it, being a lawyer. Susan, give us a little bit of education on domestic violence, the types and forms that there are, so that you might not recognize that you're actually being violated. Yeah, you might not, but maybe you are.
Yeah, for sure. The law recognizes various forms of domestic violence, rather gender-based violence, and includes physical, which is self-explanatory, where there's injury to the physical injury sustained to the person. Then there's, and that can take various forms in the setting of what we can call it intimate partner relationship, or where the intimate, it's spousal at spouse on a spouse on spouse violence, or it can even go to the point of familicide, where the whole family is unalived by an individual, or even what we call murder suicide. So the person unalives the spouse and unalives the spouse or even the children, and then unalives themselves. So we're having all those, all those are featuring in our statistics currently in Kenya, where we're having that showing up. So that's physical. And then we have the emotional, where and this really controlling behavior, somebody being gaslighted, they don't know where is what. Then we have economical, where your money is being used to control the one spouse or the other, or children being denied certain like basic requirements. So money is basically being used to control the other person, which can end up with serious mental health issues. There's something they call coercive control, and it's been recognized in Western countries as being really, really serious, particularly in intimate partner relationships, and even among spouses, where one party, the abuser, controls the other one. So the other one is so unable even to think for themselves, or even when the police can come, or they are alerted there's a problem in that household, the person who's been abused is unable to even say, yes, this is the situation. And so they're not able to be rescued. They deny that. But in the West in particular, the police are actually trained to be able to detect where this is happening, because often you'll find that the abused person, because of the coercive control, will even protect the abuser. They'll try to cover up for them. And some of our cultures really tell, especially women, not to admit that your husband is actually abusing you. So the incidences of spousal of physical violence, by the way, the highest is between married couples, or intimate partner couples, male, female. And then yeah, first of all spousal, and then intimate partner couples. Yeah. And then single parents, maybe they've been attacked by an ex somebody they were in a relationship previously or something like that. So those are the three main types of abuse, gender-based violence. And of course there's also the sexual gender-based violence, which again is we find that occurring. That's, you can find in intimate partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, that sort of thing, where sex is weaponized. And we've on this show, actually, or a previous version of this show, we've gone through quite a lot of some of those cases that have occurred in Kenya in the past year or so. And they were happening in like Airbnbs and stuff like that. Really, really grotesque sort of cases between young people who are dating, um, students. There was
Yeah, I'll
one
try to
in
get those and bring them back. Yeah, because it was on my previous,
yeah. So
because
we've
we
done
really
quite
discussed
a
it in
lot.
great detail. Mhm.
Yeah, so that's a problem in Kenya, because we need to learn how to have healthy relationships. When there's a dispute, it doesn't have to result in violence. And the truth is, if you don't honor yourself, you're not able to honor others. So you have a fundamental problem with yourself if you're not able to honor somebody else's point of view, especially your spouse or the mother of your children. I mean, that is supposed to be somebody you're supposed to be taking such great care of. On the converse, if it's the woman who's abusing the man, you're actually humiliating your children by abusing their father. You're dishonoring your children by dishonoring their father. It's all connected. And this dysfunction that we're seeing that is causing this eruption of this type of violence. Don't forget, even during the protests, women were violated. It was weaponized to harm a specific, the women. Women who were coming home from work were violated. Their statistics are there, actually. Terrible. I think at last count, there were over 30 women who reported that they were violated on their way home from work. They were not even part of the protests that took place. There was
Yeah.
a group of people who went out there deliberately to weaponize it, to humiliate women, and just sort of besmirch the whole idea of the protest, to just make it a murky picture, so that you lose the focus on the true message of why the young people went out on the streets. And in fact, Kenyans are saying, by the way, today, that Gen Z is not a generation, it is actually an idea. So anybody who supports the initial ideas of why the Gen Zs went onto the streets, to protest about, arbitrary arrest, about increased taxes, about, high living costs and all those things. Yeah, so that's basically one of the areas of insecurity. We're not secure in our homes. We're not secure even with the police, who are supposed to be keeping us safe. People are not secure. They're passing away in their custody. The
Yeah.
relationships, also the issue of insecurity, and like an inability for the security machinery to respond, or even to come up with innovative ideas or ways of handling that, or even walking away from a potentially dangerous situation in this country, where perhaps the one spouse has called the police, and said, I'm in trouble, and come and say, that is mambo ya nyumbani, that is home affairs, that is not interfering. You guys, you sort your affairs out. And, potentially leaving the partner who is under threat, putting them in a really precarious sort of situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we ask ourselves, are we facing a security issue in this nation? It's true. You wanted to say something, Pinmo?
Yeah, I was just thinking to myself as you were speaking, it brought that deja vu you were talking about last time of the CS for security, Kipchumba Murkomen, saying that anybody who comes within the vicinity of a police station shoot to what? Shoot to kill? So, this kind of message can be misinterpreted. That even if it was spoken during the period of the protests, it needs to be unspoken. That whole message needs to be retracted. Because now there are so many children and women who are not going to the police station because they feel insecure. They're not going to go to the police. If they're experiencing that, children also, they listen to those orders, that if you're found anywhere within the vicinity of a police station, you could be killed. The police have the right to take your life. Yeah? So that kind of thing is very, very serious. Another thing I wanted to also bring up is, thank you, Susan, for that explanation. But I've also seen, I live here in the UK, but I've been actually looking at the news in Kenya a lot. And every day I've been noticing, it seems that there's been an increase in child abuse cases. Children are being hurt by their teachers. There's a picture that I saw of a little kid with so many bruises on their back. The whole back was almost, completely raw. A little child. A child was maybe about 5-6 years old. So parents taking your children to school, muwe waangalifu sana na watoto wenu mkiwapeleka shuleni. Please, tafadhali, be very careful with your children as you're taking them to school. Check them, especially if you have a baby girl. Yeah. Check them, ask her, teach your children how to keep themselves safe from adults, because actually adults are perpetrators of these kinds of crimes against children.
Yeah, certainly. In fact, even the statistics show that apart from, when you're talking about physical violence, we're also talking about that this is now just physical violence, where somebody who has authority over you is violating you one way or the other. So it could be physical, it could be sexual, because we know there have been reported cases of sexual molestation by teachers and stuff like that. Even in the hospital, we've seen people taking matters to court because they were, molested by a doctor or something like that. So then also the child labor, when you're talking about exploitative behaviors towards children, apparently there are 1.3 million. A recent report shows there are 1.3 million Kenyan children who are under child labor. They're being exploited, and it's mainly in the agricultural and informal settlements. That's where this is actually happening in Kenya. The other thing is, and let's not forget the story of the Shakahola. When we're talking about security, let's not forget the horrible story of Shakahola, and we're going into a phase 2. The fellows who were involved in the Shakahola case, they're facing charges. There's the case going on. Somebody called Mackenzie, but now recently they've unearthed a second round of it, and it's in a place which is the crime scene is a vast private ranch, which is about 50,000 acres, in a place called Kwa Bi Nzaro. It falls in a place called Chakama Ranch, and it's community land, but it's now privately owned property. And they're saying that they've unearthed these bodies, and it is so terrifying, just watching it, happening again and again. And what is the issue here is that people taking devaluing people's lives. So they, under the guise of religion, they're bringing these people who are desperate to hear, or to, people desire. I believe these guys have a deep desire to worship God, and this is being abused. And by these, they must be charismatic enough to confuse the mind of, a proper thinking human being, somebody who can process information well. So what has happened is that the same ritual of starving them literally to death. They're in like a perpetual fast. So they die, they pass away, and then they are buried. So this is I'm reading Friday's newspaper. This is Friday 29th newspaper. They're saying so far 32 bodies have been unearthed, and this is in phase 2. Remember the first Shakahola, there was over 400 bodies, and they're still, by the way, they are still unearthing bodies. You can imagine how long that has been going on, and people have been looking for their relatives, and maybe they're buried in that ground.
Yes, because
It's
people
really,
traveled from very far. People traveled from all over the country
yeah,
to go to those Kilifi forests. Yeah, Shakahola,
yeah,
you know. Yeah.
and they give
Actually,
everything.
yeah, go ahead.
They give everything. They
They
give
do.
all their possessions. They give all their money in the name of somebody, getting an answered prayer or understanding this is the way you're supposed to worship God. You go with your whole family, and unless, I mean, some family members have gone to look for their family members. Imagine finding all of them, all of them gone. You
Yeah.
know,
So
it's
let me
just
add,
so.
yeah, let me add something
Yes,
there. You talked about 50,000 acre land that belongs to the community. That's community land. That means this land doesn't have a title deed, but it has owners. Yeah? This is a situation in our country where a lot of people buy land which doesn't have title deeds. And these are some of the problems that we have, especially in places like the coast. That I remember speaking to a local person at the coast about land. And they said that the first thing you need to do if you purchase land that is community land that does not have title deed in the coast or anywhere in this country is fence it with a perimeter wall, or fence it at least with something, and put somebody there in charge. Because your land can end up being used in this manner. And then now you're involved in a police case. This becomes
yeah, in fact,
a criminal
mhm.
case, isn't it, Susan? You're the lawyer. You can help us with that. But this is what they told me, and I thought that was very, very, very important. That people can do all sorts of things on property that is not their own. So if you own vast amount of land, or even a small piece of land, go and fence it. Put somebody there in charge to take a look at your to take a look at your land. And these days we have AI. We have ways to check. There's something that you can put there at your land, and you can check on your land on your phone and see what's going on over there, Send people there, let people, let it look like there are people at that land. Yeah, don't leave it idle. If you have 50,000 acres and you can't manage it, sell it, man. Let's sell it. Don't keep it, because you might end up becoming, and what do we say? Like you might be putting yourself in a situation where you were associated with a criminal event happening on your land.
Sadly, in fact, it's exactly that, Maureen, because I'm just looking at the newspaper article, and they're talking about uh, this Shakama Ranch is like 50,000 acres, and these guys, uh, who, these criminal groups, these guys who are doing these cults, were somewhere in it, and it's a vast piece of land, 40 kilometers away from the nearest police station. The owners of the land of this ranch, the Chakama Ranch, say that they never sold land to anybody. So they want to know how, so of course the investigators want to know, so how did these guys come to be on this land? Like you said, the implications being, you can be told you are aiding and abetting, you're an accomplice to the whole thing, because this offense actually happened on your property, and stuff like that. So they were saying that it's the land is so vast, it was not easy to detect that, and it's in a forested area apparently, that these crimes were going on. So yeah, so they were saying that sources privy to the activities in the forest disclosed that were it not for a power struggle among senior cult members, the Kwa Bizarro deaths might have continued unnoticed for some time. Imagine that.
It's very
So it's
serious.
actually there.
It's very sad. And of course, you know, these
Yeah.
people, the cult leaders themselves, they don't starve themselves. They eat. Those ones, they eat. But they expect their
Ah,
followers to be starving. Hey, you guys, be careful, man. People are using,
but remember,
humans as sacrifices to try to make money. Anyway, Susan, we only have a few minutes. We've gone over the hour. Now, maybe to
yes,
discuss education, unless you want to continue with this.
yeah. So that's I mean, we were discussing the issue of security, whether the nation is facing a security crisis, and of course, we can see even from the when we do the analysis of the Kenya at 15 and the Constitution, we can see we're not doing well on the Bill of Rights. We can see that security issues are not being addressed well enough. A lot of things are not going right. We know also when we talk about the army, there's been this pay as you eat scheme that has come up where before they were being fed on government funds, and now you pay as you eat. So which is not good. That's not a good thing for the army. Um, so again, we know that the police, who are supposed to be in charge of security in the civilian situation, certainly their terms, the way their living conditions are deplorable. You know, the working conditions are very difficult too, and that needs to be improved as well. And we know that some of the injuries and the unaliving has actually occurred between police officers themselves. So security is really continuing to be a problem. And then the civic spaces are shrinking in terms of we can't say much, our freedoms are being trivialized, and justice is elusive. I mean, there's this question about the courts as well. Access to justice. Are people getting access to justice? You know, are they able to afford to file cases? If you Are you able to? Are you getting? Are you being treated the same way, whether you have or have not? And stuff like that. Are you getting your day in court? We know justice delayed is justice denied. That's a saying. Of course, they're saying we are doing our best in the circumstances, but they are constrained by the fact that of the three arms of government, they're the least funded. Now, the justice sector. We know that the courts have tried to during the protests, a lot of young people were actually taken to the courts. We talked about arbitrary arrests. We know many of them were charged with terrorism, but and the bond terms were so high. But eventually they were reduced, but they'd already spent a number of days in the cells before that. We know that our members of parliament, those who have spoken out against the system, about the ruling party, some of them have faced the wrath. They've been arrested and locked up. And there was one particularly bizarre case where they were arrested and charged, and then when they were released, they were rearrested because and then charged on the same things and taken now before the terrorist court. And they were arrested in such like a movie. I mean, it was terrible. There was shooting within the court precincts, which was completely unnecessary. So we really need to pull up our socks. At 15, Kenya is not doing well. We can see the security issues are not being handled correctly. People, people are beefing up their personal security around them. They have to look for other ways. The police have their issues. So it is actually a serious. Women, children, we're still not safe. We've seen the really bizarre stories. One particularly nasty one was where this gentleman unalived his spouse and gouged out her eyes. he gouged out her eyes. Yeah. In Kenya.
They say that actually the person who lives with you is the most dangerous one. The most dangerous person around you is actually the person you sleep with. Eh? The person that you said vows with. Most dangerous. That's what they say. Isn't it, Susan?
To learn how to communicate better and cope with stress better. And the one way this can be done is actually through the education system. But we know the education system is also a problem. These children went to school with, and the capitation was not yet released. In fact, somebody I was asking, so I asked them, I asked, is your daughter back in school? And they said yes. And I said, oh, the capitation has not been released yet. And the person laughed and said, well, there are two different school fees you pay in school. There's the one that is official, and then the other. Now the other is to sort of cover all those spaces. So the parents have to pay all types of, because the capitation is not there, the children have to continue going to school. So that the parents have to end up digging into their pockets to pay for things. So even when you see this is a low-cost national school or a high-cost national school, there's a lot of extras that the parents have to pay, which are not officially showing anywhere. But that is the only way that the child can continue to go to school.
Yeah, Susan, talking about what parents have to do to cover. In the rural areas, when they don't have money, this is the time now parents are going to be exploited. They're going to have to bring chickens, eggs, they're going to have to feed the school, bring a goat. That's what they do in the rural areas. Or even in the peri-urban areas. You go and take some chickens to the headmaster so that he doesn't kick your child out of school. You go and borrow from your women's group. This is what women have been doing. If they can't afford cash, they pay in kind. They give free labor in the kitchen. Mothers really suffer for their children's education. So the government really needs to do something about this situation. I wanted to share something with you just before we close. Let me see here, sharing my screen. This is about the military, talking about the military. This is actually from, these are Kenyans who are talking on TikTok, yeah? This is showing you something that I saw on TikTok, was quite interesting. Okay. Oh,
Kenya
sorry.
Defense Forces. Removing subsidized food for the Kenya Defense Forces could spark a military rebellion against the Kenya Kwanza regime. Here are 5 factual and practical reasons why. 1. Demoralization of troops. Subsidized food is a key component of military welfare. Ensuring soldiers and their families have basic needs met. Removing this benefit could severely demoralize the troops, leading to dissatisfaction and resentment against the government. A disgruntled military is a recipe for instability. 2. Erosion of trust in leadership. Soldiers are expected to make sacrifices for the nation, including putting their lives on the line. If the government cannot uphold its end of the bargain by ensuring their welfare, it erodes trust and loyalty, making rebellion more likely. 3. Undermining operational readiness. The removal of subsidies forces soldiers to redirect their limited income to cover rising food costs, potentially distracting them from their duties. Financial stress among troops could lead to reduced morale and efficiency, creating a fertile ground for unrest within the ranks. 4. Perception of neglect and disrespect. Subsidized food is often seen as a form of respect and recognition for the military's service. Taking it away may be viewed as a sign of government indifference to the sacrifices of soldiers, fostering anger and fueling rebellion sentiments. 5. Historical precedent. for military unrest. Around the world, neglecting military welfare has often been a trigger for mutinies or coups. Soldiers are an organized and disciplined group capable of mobilizing quickly. The removal of basic benefits like subsidized food could spark and ignite discontent and rebellion against the regime. Governments must handle military welfare carefully, as an unhappy military can quickly turn into a political threat.
Wow. Really well summarized right there. From morale to disrespect to so many things. Yeah? You can see. And there's so many of these videos. I think the government needs to go and look at the TikTok videos and, review them with an open mind. Because this is where people are speaking their minds. Okay, I think, Susan, one more thing, and then from there we can close.
Just my parting shot, really, there's so much more we can do. I think it's good to have had this day, Katiba Day on 27th of August. It enabled us as a nation to take stock and to comment from different perspectives and diverse responses from the media houses, from professionals and politicians, and whatever, the youth as well, just talking about their own perception of how the Katiba has been, whether it's working and how it's doing. Well, I think one resounding something that has come out quite strongly is that it is not being implemented as intended, definitely, because if the leadership and integrity chapters were being utilized correctly, if the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission was doing its work right, and not doing selective work, without being, politically motivated, like we saw them suddenly jumping to their feet and, saying we have so many files against these people and we're intending to charge them. The files are closed. We pass them to the Office of the Director of the Public Prosecution and all that. That sort of thing. It needed the president to trigger them to say that, to take action. We can see there's a lot of interference with the bodies. The other thing is, look at devolution. Devolution has not worked the way it should have worked. Should have worked, we should be having a lot of autonomy and independence in the counties. But what's happening? The national government is not releasing their expected funds in a timely manner or in sufficient amount. We know, and then we look at Parliament. The relationship between Parliament and the executive. Right now, Parliament is very much controlled by the executive. We heard the comments about corruption that came out. Corruption is a leadership and integrity issue, something that actually is something that is frowned against even under our national values as a nation. And we're finding that there's this banding about of this word between the Parliament and the executive. Who's fooling who in this whole story? There's a song that we used to, people of my age and Maureen's age, we knew a popular song called "Who's Fooling Who." The question is, who's fooling who in this whole situation? Well, the Kenyan public are not fooled at all.
Are you fooling me or am I fooling you? Yeah, obviously. We're not very young, are we? We've been around.
The Kenyan public is not fooled at all by what they're seeing. We're increasingly aware. We've seen the way people want to participate and stuff like that. So Katiba at 15, I heard one politician saying people want to amend the Katiba and they have not even implemented it in the first place. So what are you amending? So first you implement and then you amend it. But obviously we can see that we are suffering from a hangover of the 63 constitution, and not able to really embrace the current constitution, the 2010 constitution, in the way we are supposed to. That's all from me.
Thank you, Susan. And on that note, I want to remind people that Raila actually said that we have too many constituencies, isn't it? And he said we've got 46, is it? And he said we should have fewer. There should be no more than like about 7 or 8. There are too many. It's too much work. But actually, that's the whole spirit of devolution. Yeah, that's the whole spirit of it. Like Susan said, let them implement the constitution. If we can implement our constitution, we have one of the best constitutions in the world. It would definitely ensure our security, and we would also be an amazingly fantastic nation to live in. Already people really like us, and I saw, one of them, they love living in Kenya, but I saw a foreigner say something, make a statement that I was watching one of the videos of an African, actually a black British guy who visited Kenya and said that when he came back to the UK, he's not been the same since. He's been traumatized by the visit to Kenya because he realized what he's missing out on. He's a young man and he would love to live in Kenya, except that, he worries about his security, perhaps, financial security, physical security maybe. But I saw in the comment section, one person say, I wish that your leaders would do something to make Kenya more secure so that we don't have to leave. Think about that, yeah? Because this is now another person in America, an African American who is in America. He said that he was in Kenya recently. He's also experiencing the same thing. He's missing Kenya so much, but he doesn't feel like he can come back because he doesn't feel that he can make the money that he makes in America in Kenya. And yet we know that Africa is the richest continent. Why should we not have that as one of our goals, one of our agendas, to make sure that the young people can thrive in their own country and that anybody who wants to come and live in Kenya and work in Kenya can do so? Yeah, so I think it's like, it's about respecting the fact that there are people who went before us and paid the price. So we should just be building on that and not trying to start all over again. Yeah, so on that note, thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate your time. Sorry we went a little bit overboard. We will be editing this and make it a bit shorter for those of you who don't have that kind of time to join us with a live or to listen. So thank you so much for your time, Susan. Been a pleasure as usual. Have a lovely week and thank you for everything. Thank you guys for watching. Goodbye. Kwaherini. Bye-bye.